Welcome to the Coaway Podcast, devoted to the idea that a team of people led by a good owner, sharing best practices in a culture built on trust and respect, will complete better projects. I'm Howie Ferguson, the Executive Director of COA, the Construction Owners Association of America. And today we'll be talking with longtime member, volunteer, leader, and friend, Marvin Woodward, who's currently with Atlas Technical Consultants. But before Marvin tells us his story, let me let my co-host introduce herself.
Hey everyone, my name is Lucy Castro and I'm the Manager of Operations and Administration for COA and also the person with the most hair on this call. Welcome.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. So Marvin, by the way, I think it would be Lucy, Marvin, Howie in that order of most hair, or Captain Obvious. Marvin, welcome and thank you for taking time to be here. If you would, you can go as brief or as long as you want, but just to get started, tell us, for those who don't know, I kind of know, but tell us the story of your professional journey, starting at whatever point you want, and then leading up to what you now do and who you work for and all that.
Well, first of all, thanks for this opportunity. COA has been a significant part of my work journey and enhancing my learning curve in the vertical worlds, which is all part of my story. So I'll start with I'm a civil engineer, but initially my focus was in transportation, the horizontal, world, roads and bridges. As a teen, that was kind of my passion. I was always fascinated about road construction. So I had an emphasis in transportation in college. And then soon after that, got a job with New Jersey Department of Transportation. So I was a highway inspector. And then I worked for a couple different highway contractors in New Jersey. After that, I worked for the Federal Highway Administration in New Jersey. And then right before the Olympics, a couple years before the Olympics that were held in Atlanta in 1996, I had a chance to take a job promotion and move to Georgia and work on some Olympic projects, which was really a fantastic experience. Also worked for a regional transportation authority here in Atlanta, implementing a suburban express bus service. And then my supervisor for that job got moved by the governor to an agency that oversaw building maintenance and building construction. And so he asked me if I would consider sort of a career change a little bit. And he said, you don't really need to know the vertical world. You can learn that. I just need somebody that can manage people. So I was looking for a new opportunity. And so I took that position. And then probably a few months after that, I met a guy named Mike Koenig from Holder Construction. And Mike said, hey, you really need to get involved with COA. And at that point, I'm drinking water from a fire hose and, didn't need one more thing. But those of you and those of us that know Mike know he can be pretty persistent. So he did not let up on me. And so I caved in. But from the first meeting on, I was hooked. And so I met some people, both on the private and public side, that knew a lot about vertical construction and that were able to advise me and help me. And so I was with that agency for 12 years, and part of that, probably 5 or 6 years, I was the chapter president in Georgia of COA, and then had a chance to serve on the national board for 3 years. Decided to take a retirement from state government. So now I'm working for Atlas Technical Consultants, kind of mostly back on the horizontal side, but Atlas does do project and program management for both vertical and horizontal. So I still am doing a little bit of vertical project and program management. So that's my story.
And you're sticking to it. So two things, Marvin, following up on that, perfect length duration of the recap of an incredible, whatever it is, 30, 40-year career. Two things. One, for those who were in Atlanta back in 96, if they have complaints about MARTA and the Olympics, should they talk to you? Is that your doing? Or that no?
I did not have anything to do with MARTA,
Okay.
but if they had any complaints about the bus system or the the highway system, message board, signing, anything like that, they can give me a call. So hopefully they forget. That was a long time ago. Hopefully they've forgotten by then.
They're like, Atlanta hosted the Olympics? Really? Yeah, they did. My sister lived up there at that time, and I heard all kinds of stuff, good and bad. But I love that part of your career. I think that's really cool, and I of course love that that's what relates to you coming to Georgia.
Right. That was kind of the initial start to traffic information systems and cameras along the highway system. So we had cameras every third of a mile. So I can remember watching Bill Clinton, riding his motorcade down the highway from the airport up in Cobb County all the way. So we could track him because we had the camera system in. So that was a good test for getting smarter and using technology to manage operations on a highway system.
Right. And then the other follow-up, Marvin, no kidding at all involved with this, kidding a little bit about MARTA, but I love that when you made the move over to GSFIC with your colleague, huge compliment to you that he wanted to take you with him. And his quote to you was, you can learn the vertical construction business. I need someone who can manage people. Talk about, because I happen to know and have seen that ability. I think it way beyond the technical chops you have. I think that is your strongest thing. Talk about that. What is your style and approach? How did you lead people throughout your career, and why were you better than average at it?
Well, first of all, I just like being with people. I like hearing people's stories. I have a passion for coaching people, mentoring people. And so, basically my philosophy is, hire the right person, make sure they're on the right seat of the bus, and then, get them what they need, route them on, and then get out of their way. So I'm very much about empowering people, but at the same time, you have to make sure they have what they need. So probably that is my strength. Working with people, managing, coaching people. We all have a technical background. That's what we studied in college. We didn't have a lot of soft skill training in college. So, we've had to either learn that or take classes or whatever in our working careers. And I've certainly taken advantage of all that. But I do like working with people. I like figuring out people's strengths and weaknesses. I like putting teams of people together that complement each other. So that means they all don't have the same strength and weaknesses, but they vary. I think that's true with boards. That I think the COA boards that I served on, people brought different strengths and weaknesses to the table, which also make for some interesting conversation, right? But if you have an environment where you can speak your mind, and the end result will be better. So I've always tried to create an environment where if somebody disagreed with me, that's okay. Let's talk about that, and I'll think about what you say. So I do like working with people, and managing people has been a significant part of my career.
And so I'm going to chime in here because I had the opportunity of working with you with the COA Georgia chapter, and it was a joy, Marvin. One of the things that I remember the most is that we went to a venue where things were just not set up right and they weren't allowing us to do catering, something. And I remember you getting your daddy pants on. I don't know how else to say this, but like uh mama, they talk about mama bears. Well, you were like, oh, they're not letting you do that. Well, let's go talk to them. And it was a whole different side of you, Marvin, that I had ever seen, right? Because usually when I dealt with you, you were very go with the flow, very easygoing. Sure, let's try that, let's do that. But someone was messing with your teammate, me, and you were like, no, this is not going to go, we're going to go take care of this, and you did. And I was like, yay, thank you, someone's helping me. So I want to give you thanks for that. I remember that very, very clearly. So
Well,
I agree with the whole coaching thing.
all right. Well, I appreciate that. I think I read a quote recently about leadership, and it might have been from Nelson Mandela, where um, when people are successful, you stand in the background and you let the people that are working for you enjoy those successes. But when things aren't going so well, that's when a leader steps forward and has to take charge and protect the troops, or carve a different path, or just get the situation straight. And I think in a way maybe that's been my philosophy, although he summed it up much better uh, than I did. But that's probably a good example where things weren't going so well and somebody needed to step in and take charge. And I don't mind doing that, but I prefer to let other people be out in front uh, and get the accolades and that they deserve for all the hard work. So
Love it. And Marvin, kind of picking up on Lucy's story, um, in a way, certainly on the element of when something's not going well, because that's when we all really show our true colors. Of course, that's not cliche. It's true. Um, Thinking about again managing, leading people, what was your approach, particularly one-on-one situations, or maybe it was maybe a whole project team that was just struggling or being kind of dysfunctional, or some bad news or some stuff hit the fan, conflict, tension, things that are not all happy sunshine puppies. What was your approach to those, particularly with people, or did it depend on the situation? Did you have kind of a go-to mo?
uh, how I think it does depend on the situation. And I think, initial or by nature, and definitely initially, I'm not one that loves conflict. All right. I don't thrive on that. So it's been a journey with me, how to deal with conflict. Um, if you think it's an individual situation, I always like to talk to the person one on one, even though that may be affecting the team. So maybe don't call them out in public, but do it in private, and see if you can find out what's going on. Right. A lot of times, what somebody blew up about is really there's something else underlying. Right. That really wasn't the issue. There was some other issue that you needed to talk about, that kind of, whether it was at home or another work situation. So my philosophy was try to dive a little deeper and see if you can solve the issue. And then if that doesn't solve it, then obviously you got to be a little tougher and have a more difficult conversation the next time.
Yeah, that's fair. And I kind of, you're not the first person we've asked that question to, and I sort of know. Of course, it depends on the situation, but it's interesting to hear different philosophies. My default is humor. That's how I diffuse tension. That's just my thing. But sometimes that backfires. Sometimes that's really not appropriate. And I've had my own journey and learned some hard lessons. And Lucy's the same way. Um, but it's cool to, because there's no right answer. It's whatever
Yeah.
you've got your thing, and we have ours. Um, Also, kind of thinking about people, and I know this is almost a softball question for you, Marvin. You were doing it before it became cool, but within an organization, or heck, even within your own household, but especially in the professional realm, whether it's a project team, an organization of of four like COA or an organization,
Mhm.
with hundreds like you used to lead. Talk about culture. I feel like you were somebody that was understood the importance of that before it got cool. Um, I happen to think that's one of COA's strong suits. Is even if we don't have a class or an event called culture, indirectly with COA way, and there's other things that we're all about that. Talk about how you came to understand how important that is, and maybe some of your philosophies on that.
Yeah, appreciate that question. I think maybe the word or flavor of the month now is ethos, right? I'm starting to see that word uh, pop out there more and more. And ethos really just is your culture, right? So some companies now are having an ethos statement. So it's not just about vision, mission, values, but it's ethos. It's your culture as well. So um, when I moved over to the vertical side for the state agency I worked for, talking with folks that were their customers, the word culture just kept coming up, and maybe not in a favorable light. So I knew that I needed to do something to improve the culture, the perception of that agency. So I worked hard at that and kind of went down two parallel tracks. First of all, you have to change the culture internally, right? And then you also have to work with your outside customers to kind of know uh, where maybe we've dropped the ball and what are we doing well, what aren't we doing well. So you kind of have to do that at the same time. So I spent a lot of time listening to people internally and then listening to customers, and we even did some outside surveys with our customers to try to, uh, in case they didn't want to talk to me openly, uh, they could, in a non-threatening way, provide feedback. So, I mean, the culture has to start at the top. So if the leaders aren't reflecting your values, your culture, your ethos, then um, the employees aren't going to follow. So I really had to work hard at my own culture, but uh, hopefully in the time that I was at GSFIC, we became much more of a customer oriented agency. Because what I heard is sometimes our first answer was always no. So I kept telling people that cannot be our first answer. It might be the answer down the road, but your first answer can't be no. Why don't you think about what the customer's asking, what they want, and see if we can figure out a way to satisfy them. At the end of the day, if we can't, then we'll go back and explain why, but we won't say no right out of the gate where they feel like they weren't listening to
Yeah,
us.
and
So
knowing you, Marvin, I bet you're, for the sake of brevity, leaving this out, but I'd be willing to bet that you probably took it a step further in certain instances and said, so maybe the answer in this particular case with this customer is no this time, but we're going to learn from it and maybe change some stuff internally so that the next time we can say yes. Like there's always, even if you can't satisfy that, there's still you're the lifelong learner. I bet that was another part of and that speaks to good
uh,
culture.
yeah, absolutely. And so many of the decisions we make aren't necessarily a yes or no. There's a lot of gray in what we
What a
do,
great.
right? And some people's personalities is there isn't much gray. But when you're in the design and construction world, there is a lot of gray, and there's a lot that's going to go right, and there's some things that are going to go wrong, and there's some things in the middle that you just have to decide, hey, which way am I going to make a call on this? And so it's kind of it's coaching people kind of think through the gray
Yeah, love
and
that.
see the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is, it may sound boring, but it's kind of a bell curve to me, most of life. There's a big 60, 70% chunk that's gray, tweener. Anyway, that's what it is. Marvin, last thing, because I know you have way better, more important things to do than talk to us. And this is I apologize a little bit because we try not to do canned questions here, but I'm really fascinated to hear your answer on this. So again, the apologies, it's a little trite or something, but was there a person, and if the answer is there really wasn't one, but was there someone throughout that long professional journey, or maybe it goes back to pre-work time, who was most impactful on you, good or bad? Sometimes we learn, okay, I'm going to grow up and not be like that guy. What person, if there was one, had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, I can think of a couple. Early in my career, when I worked for the Federal Highway Administration in New Jersey, our division administrator, his name was Charlie Nemmers. And Charlie was probably the most positive person that I had ever worked for. And I was early in my career at Federal Highway, and I was walking out of the New Jersey DOT headquarters building, late one morning, and Charlie's walking in. And he said, "What are you doing the rest of the day?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any meetings. I needed to get this done." He said, "Well, you're spending it with me." And so he roamed around the New Jersey headquarters building with no appointments, just popping in people's office, just seeing what was on their mind, what was concerned to them. How could the Federal Highway Administration help out the New Jersey DOT? And so that taught me a lot to, informal meetings are sometimes the most powerful, right? And just by asking a couple really open-ended questions, he got a lot of information. And so I sort of adopted that in my workplace, that my door was always open, but I was a roamer. Just about every day I would roam the office and just sit down in somebody's cubicle and say, "Hey, what's going well? What's not going well? Let's tell me about that," or "How was your weekend?" or whatever. So that was really impactful on me, because Charlie was a great people person. So I learned a lot from that. And then my boss at the state, his name was Steve Stansel. And Steve was great at, we talked about conflict earlier. He was good at calming the stormy waters. And he taught me a couple things. He said, a lot of times when it's a difficult conversation, he said, go have a meal with somebody, have lunch. There's just something about breaking bread together that it kind of puts everybody at ease. And he said, go to some neutral territory, right, where it's not on your turf, not on their turf. And I thought that was really good advice. And he also told me, never put bad news in an email. Try to go see the person if it's some bad news, or at a minimum, call them.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are just a couple stories that have always stuck with me.
Love them both. Lucy, you look like you're about to weigh in.
I was just going to say something smart and stupid. I was going to say, well, I'm disappointed that you didn't pick me, but that's okay. But again, they're good stories, Marvin. I was just wanting to bust your chops.
Yeah. Well, in any event, that's what we do here at COA. We certainly, on the staff side, we bust each other's chops. So Marvin, you're we're not that much different in age, but I'll tell you candidly, you were a bit of a role model for me. It may sound weird. Usually that's someone who's like much older than you, but call it a big brother thing. You were a huge impact on COA, whether you know it or not, in a 100% positive way. So thank you. And thank you. Let the little secret out here that Marvin is going to be joining our Owner Training Institute instructor staff. What took you so long, but thank you, because you're going to be a great addition. And any closing final thoughts?
No, I'm looking forward to that. Maybe the next chapter in my life journey. I do like coaching people. I've never, really taught formally, a class consistently. but I'm looking forward to doing that, interacting with students. And hey, if you can teach something, that means you're learning it too, right? And
That is
so
true.
I think, that's what's beautiful about COA is, yeah, the instructors may be up there, but every person sitting in the classroom's got a story, has a perspective, and, and you need to pull that out of them because you'll learn and the rest of the class will learn. And then you take that to the next class and hopefully make it better. So I'm really looking forward to that challenge. So, and I'm glad COA has technical classes, and I'm glad COA has classes on the, the human personal skill side, because I think it takes both of those to be a good owner, to be a good project manager. So I'm looking forward to it.
1,000%. We are too, Marvin. Thank you. Thanks for your time today, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you.